Speyer Cathedral is an example of what we would tend to see in the Holy Roman Empire, which is very similar to what we will see, or what we have seen, in France. And it's called Speyer Cathedral because, well, they have another one down the road. This is actually far from a pilgrimage road. It's not a pilgrimage site, and it is on the Rhine River, paid for by imperial funds. Again, rulers tend to want to be associated with God. It helps with the whole idea of being chosen by God to be the ruler, but also it helps get their mortal soul into heaven. So this becomes a symbol of power and authority of the Holy Roman Emperor, who is desperate, looking for this sort of symbolism, because the Holy Roman Empire kind of comes and goes throughout this period of the late medieval. It develops, it falls apart, it redevelops again, it falls into a swamp, catches fire, they rebuild it again. You get the idea. So this idea of the supremacy of the Holy Roman Emperor over rivals, including the papacy. And this is meant to be a culmination of Carolingian and Ottonian architecture that we talked about in the late medieval. The exterior is very reflective of the interior. So from the outside, what you see is something very similar to St. Michael's at Hildesheim. It is made up of simple geometric forms pieced together, and it is really something where the parts create the whole. You could easily divide this into individual parts. So in 1106, we see groin vaults being built in the nave, and those groin vaults aren't terribly obvious, although of course the soot and dirt of centuries has built up. So you can really see those groin vaults, and then they're built into bays with an arch in between each one. The idea is that those arches help support the groin vaults that move the weight down into the walls, and this replaced the original wooden roof in 1106. As we look at the nave versus the aisle, what you will see is that there are actually two bays, two groin vaults per groin vault when we look at the nave versus the aisle. This is because they're acting as independent forms. They're creating two completely different structural pieces. And this was to carry the heavy vault up above. They also use piers on the exterior to reinforce this. And then it is compartmentalized by this use of alternate support systems. So the aisle acts almost completely independently of the main roof over the nave. It also visually, as you move through the church, would give this sense of being in specific parts of the church. If we look at the elevation, so we cut it down the middle here, looking at it, we can see the bell tower. Here is our steeple over the crossing. And what you will immediately recognize is something very similar to what we've seen before, where they're using the aisle to take that weight from all of these central structures, for example, the nave and the bell tower, and they're using it to move the weight down, trying to make that line as horizontal as they can before dropping it straight down the wall. They're also striving for height, creating what they're hoping is a more expansive interior space. Very similar to Cluny 3, they're trying to create something that draws your eye up and creates the miracle on earth. Again, there's no reason to believe in God when you see his work every day in the church that you attend. We do have these engaged columns once again, and those are, again, drawing your eye up, giving a sense of verticality, trying to get you to contemplate the spiritual, the heavenly, those things above the human realm.